We interrupt your regularly scheduled episode with a sacred emergency broadcast. Welcome to Between Lovers, the Heart and Soul Chronicles. I'm T, your sacred guide, and this is not a regular episode. We're cutting through the static of your survival. We interrupt your regularly scheduled coping, your algorithm of forgetting, your dopamine diet of distractions. We interrupt your partnership pedestal, your social media sermon, your morning scroll, your afternoon numbness. We interrupt your performative prayers, your panic to be palatable, because the earth is speaking, the womb is roaring, and the truth, it's not coming, it's already here. You feel it, that ache in your gut, the tightness in your chest, the wave of grief at 3:44 a.m. That's not anxiety. That's God knocking, and not the God they gave you, but the one who lived in you before they taught you to beg for your love. This is not the apocalypse. It's the revelation. The veil is lifting, and so are you. Before we continue, I want to honor what you may already be feeling. If you've been overwhelmed lately, emotionally raw, dizzy, nauseous, sweaty, foggy, or heavy in the head or even in the heart, you're not broken. You're feeling the presence of God. Sometimes the body recognizes divinity before the mind can make sense of it. And here's the truth. You can't sleep it away. You can't drink it away. You can't smoke it, laugh it, or even sex it away. Because this isn't anxiety, it's awakening. So take a moment, find a relaxed position, drink some water, get a notebook and a pen nearby, or open up your notes app. You may feel sensations rise today. You may weep. You may remember. You may finally feel safe enough to release what's been holding you and what you've been holding. This isn't a performance, it's a recalibration. Let this be your permission to pause, to receive, and to prepare your nervous system for the truth you were always meant to carry. And remember, I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to sit still. Close your eyes and let your soul listen. Lean in with your own discernment. That's where the truth lives. Welcome back. The word apocalypse doesn't mean destruction. It actually means more like the lifting of the veil. And the veil has been lifted. The earth is no longer waiting for permission. The lies you were raised on, the systems you were trained to trust, the gods you were told to fear, they all unravel when you finally meet yourself. This isn't a podcast episode. It's a spiritual intervention, a divine broadcast breaking through the noise. You were looking for a beast. You read about him in Revelations, heard whispers from pulpits, watched Hollywood turn prophecy into horror films. Many are waiting for a man with horns and a dragon's breath, but they miss the mirror because the beast, he's already here, in boardrooms, in bedrooms, in belief systems that teach you to hate yourself and call it salvation. The Antichrist was never coming. It was becoming. Becoming the teacher who mocks the spirit, the healer who harvests, the man who dominates because he fears the womb, the woman who manipulates because she fears being seen. It's the smile that hides control, the silence that avoids accountability, the doctrine that weaponizes God to shame you out of your own body. It's destruction dressed up in credentials, pain prescribed by professionals, spirits served in bottles as if alcohol were holy. It's creating idols on man-made images while claiming to worship the visible. It's condemning others for idolatry while bowing daily to celebrity, currency, and control. It's crafting new laws against witchcraft while casting spells through music videos, media manipulation, and the digital potions of your morning scroll. They call others wicked, while sipping spirits, streaming spells, and summoning fear as entertainment. The Antichrist is not a man or a woman. It's a frequency, a forgetting, a fracture convincing the soul it's alone. It's what we become when we trade power for performance, when we protect comfort instead of truth, when we bow to systems and call that survival. But the Christ, she never misses. She was buried under guilt, under greed, under good girl and God-fearing. The Christ is not just a man nailed to wood. The Christ is a code, a vibration, a return path. She is the woman who births nations and still sings. He is the man who lays ego down and finally listens. It is the moment you say, I refuse to spiral down anymore. You thought salvation was coming from outside, a rapture, a robe, a trumpet in the clouds, but salvation is remembrance. It's the realization you were never meant to live as a servant, but as a sovereign, a God child. They taught you to be chaotic and simply ask for forgiveness, but failed to tell you the truth. The truth that you are responsible and accountable for your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions, not through perfection, but through presence. You are a living cell in the body of the Most High. And it was never about waiting on Christ to return. It's always been about choosing to become Him. Because Christ is not just a Savior, Christ is a standard, a mirror, a call to remember. The Christ most often preached about, He is the son of a womb that has been distorted, dismissed, and dishonored by nearly every tradition that claims to speak His name. The very mother God chose to carry divinity into flesh is rarely honored in the fullness she deserves. Not because she lacked holiness, but because the world still struggles to love what it cannot control. Even women bow to dishonor, forgetting their own sacred reflection to be accepted by men who do not revere them. If you believe the Creator is above, why do you bow below? They minimized her, then crucified Him. Because even when God gave proof through a woman, they still rejected it, ridiculed her, refused to believe. It was never really about faith, because most were never a people of it. They believed by sight, not by spirit, just like today. And that's why many have missed it. Why they've always missed it. Because the Creator doesn't move by appearances, idols, and trinkets. The Most High speaks in vibration, moves through energy, resounds in frequency, all the things they taught you to fear. So those who trust only what they see will be shaken by what they cannot. And those who do not believe will be made to feel what they refuse to know. Because the earth doesn't argue. The heavens don't plead. And spirit does not beg to be seen. It simply moves. And in that moment, everything false will tremble. Still today, many cannot recognize the Christ within because they cannot revere the womb that brought Him through. But non-believers aren't just atheists. They're the ones who put their faith in empire, who trust what their eyes were trained to see, what their fear instructed them to reject. Because Christ was never a fairy tale, never a doctrine, never a symbol to be sold. Christ is and always was a frequency, a sacred pattern, a divine return to the origin of your own soul. So the real question has never been, will He come back? The real question is, will you? Will you return to who you were before shame became your scripture? Before systems were mistaken for salvation? Before fear rewrote your reflection and told you that holiness could only come from someone else? Christ is not coming for you. Christ is coming through you. And that has always been the secret they prayed you'd never remember. So, are you spiraling upward? or hiding behind holy words, temples, and pulpits while living in spiritual vacancy? Are you remembering who you are or still defending the forgetting? This world doesn't need more noise. It needs the Christed ones to stand up, to remove the mask, to stop seeking, and to start embodying. You were looking for the beast while feeding him daily, and now the mirror has found you. Choose your spiral, because Christ doesn't knock, she activates. So maybe now you're wondering, who's feeling this the most? It's the women with ancient memory in their wombs but confusion in the mirrors. The men waking up in bodies of performance and pain, unsure how to cry. The children who don't want the world we're handing them. And those souls who can't concentrate, can't sleep, and can't go back to normal. The beautiful souls trapped in the trap. You know what the trap is. Those of you who understand the words that I am saying, you are not broken. You're being recalibrated by truth. Now, let me offer. The hood was holy. A little spoken word for the beloveds. They called it the trap, but the truth, it was the cradle. A sacred basin where God hid the prophets until the world got honest enough to listen. You thought it was poverty, but it was prophecy, wrapped in hand-me-downs and police sirens, covered in roaches and rent notices, flooded with trauma but never void of spirit, because somehow, even with empty cabinets and hungry bellies, somebody still laid hands in the hallway, still prayed in the kitchen, still saw angels and a boy with dirty shoes. The hood wasn't hopeless. It was holy. It was full of personalities, talent, bright stars in human flesh, protectors, nurturers, truth-tellers, artists. Those who moved among you like hidden saints, but you missed it because it wasn't polished, because the preacher never stood on a stoop, because the sermon was screamed by a mother who couldn't afford childcare but fed the whole block anyway. You missed it because it didn't feel like frankincense. It smelled like Black and Milds and soul food. And you thought God only lived in incense, not in holders made from old soda cans on corner tables and chip countertops. But listen, God stayed there, stayed on porches, laughed on marble stoops, watched first kisses, cradled the girls who danced their pain away in basements and sang to broomsticks like microphones, whispered into the boys who almost didn't make it back home. Don't ever let them shame you because of where you come from. Because the hood taught you to survive, taught you discernment, taught you prayer without language. And if that isn't sacred, then neither is the church. God was in the beat-up car you rode to work in the Kool-Aid you drank to stay full, in the silence between sirens, in your cousin's hand during the raid. While other kids were learning to tie their shoes, you were learning how to stay alive, watching your six when you should have been watching the clouds. You didn't just make it out, you made it through. And that is resurrection. The hood was never your punishment. It was your proving ground. And your story ain't a sob story. It's a scripture. Because the rejected stone has always been the cornerstone. And the unchosen one? We were the carriers all along. Now I'm just talking to y'all on a beautiful Sunday evening. So if there's no validity to your power, then tell me this. Why would they pour billions of dollars into the further suffering of a demographic they say doesn't matter? Why would entire systems be built to mine the hopes out of zip codes if those people weren't carrying a frequency the world couldn't control? Why hasn't this nation known peace? Why, with all its access, its money, its addictions fed, and desires fulfilled, why is there still emptiness? And it's scraping across America's chest. I'll tell you why. Because the lie was too profitable, and the truth too threatening. Because what if the whole world knew and said nothing? What if every leader, every preacher, every benefactor of silence just doubled down on the lie? What if they watched the chosen get snatched from their mothers and whispered, "This is how we keep the order. This is just the cost of peace." But beloved, This ain't peace. This is engineered chaos. This is spiritual genocide masquerading as justice. This is trauma dressed in tradition. This is stay together for the kids even when the house has no warmth. This is two people under one roof resenting each other silently because they're too afraid to repeat the broken home they were raised in. They confuse endurance with love, but it's not love if it only survives through stagnation. And what's wild is some only stay because they remembered what happened when they didn't. How the welfare era punished presence. How love had to leave so survival could stay. Because systems don't want wholeness, they want fractures. Because fracture makes you easier to manage, and silence makes you easier to sell. So they sold you the story that brokenness is holy if you hide it well enough. But the earth doesn't argue, the heavens don't plead, and spirit doesn't beg to be seen. It simply moves. And in that movement, everything false will tremble. And the only thing louder than the lie right now is the sound of the ones waking up inside it. So when you remember where you came from, when you stand at the gates of your own story, say it with your chest. The hood was holy, and so was I. Because nobody told them. Not loud enough, not real enough, not without pity or statistics. Nobody told us that we were more than enough, that our silence was sacred strategy, that our forgiveness was world-shifting alchemy, that our inner restraint, the refusal to burn down what was already on fire, was the most powerful weapon Earth has ever known. No one told me, and now I shall tell you. Surviving with your heart intact was not weakness. It was divinity in raw form. So this right here is the story they were never given. That every time they chose not to retaliate, they rewrote fate. That every time they smiled without reason, they opened a portal. That every time they kept going with nothing in their hands, the heavens wept with reverence. Because the hood was holy, and it held the ones who didn't know their power, but carried it anyway. And with that, that is where God lives now. And those of us who made it out, we didn't leave you behind. We're holding the line across cities, across states and countries. We're standing in spirit with open arms and altered hearts. Because the best part is, there's no peace without your inner peace. There's no healing without your safety. There's no heaven without your story. And there never was. So take your time and remember who you are. And when you're ready, come home. We've been waiting to return with you together. Now, if you are feeling unworthy of peace, sit with me for a moment. Beloved one, to the soul who was born into lack but carried light anyway, to the child who learned to pray before they learned to read, to the heart that got overlooked but never lost its rhythm, this is your altar. Not made of marble, but of memory. Not lit with candles, but with a fire you kept alive when everyone expected you to burn out. I speak now over your wounds with the language of resurrection. May you finally feel seen, not for your pain, but for your power through it. May the hands that stole from you be stilled. May the mouths that shamed you go quiet. May the systems that labeled you collapse under the weight of your rising. And maybe you remember, you were never broken. You were buried, hidden like a seed, not because you were nothing, but because you were everything the lie couldn't afford to bloom. So I call now for spiritual reparations. Let the dignity stolen from your grandmother's house be returned tenfold. Let the memory erased from your bloodline resurface with glory. Let the joy they told you you had to earn become your birthright again. I call back the sons. I call back the daughters. I call back the elders who swallowed their stories and the babies who still see angels in the dark. I call back you. And I say, you are not behind. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are still sacred. You are still holy. You are still home. So lay your hands on your hearts. Say it with your whole chest. I am not what they called me. I am what God remembers. And when you rise from this altar, rise with the knowing that heaven is waiting for your return, because the kingdom never left you. It just hid in your reflection, waiting for you to see it. And may this prayer close with whatever word soothes your heart, or silence wrapped in reverence. The line has been held. The gates are still open. The hood was holy, and so were you. Now, let me share another story. I call it the return of the crowned ones. Before time was clocked, before the male god was made into graven image, before scriptures were contorted to fracture the soul, she was the first womb, the black flame, the breath and the burial, both Alpha and Omega, not metaphorically, but biologically, spiritually, and geologically. She is not metaphor, she is mechanism. The black woman is not just a figure, she is the original sequencer of Earth's continuity. She can birth every hue, every vibration, every nation. But not every womb can replicate her. Because she is not a branch of humanity, she is the root system. If God desired to experience itself, not in heaven, but on earth, then it did what any creator would do. It seated itself in dirt, formed Adama, and then built the temple inside her. Birthing is not a function, it is a frequency. The original creator had to be feminine, for creation requires the capacity to hold, nurture, sustain, and release. So she was not made from a man's rib. Man was rendered from her blueprint. So he could mirror the polarity, not dominate the source. No middleman was required between her and God. She was the medium and the message. But to conquer a people, first you must confuse the source. So they barreled down on the black man to destroy the fortress and programmed him to barrel down on the black woman, to dismantle the temple. It was systemic sorcery. Take the man from his light, take the woman from her soil, take the children from their truth and call it progress. But what they never accounted for was that Earth herself was bound to her. When the land becomes dry, it was her tears. When the air becomes heavy, it is her silence. When the world begins to burn, it is the sacred grief of the black woman returning to her power. Ask yourself, if you got lost, who would you look for? Who would you trust your child to look for in a sea of people of confusion and chaos? The hidden cost of her suppression. Many men starve for what they cannot generate. Melanin, estrogen, womb wisdom, spiritual nurturing. These are not just genetics, these are technologies. And you cannot buy what must be bestowed by grace. Other women were once taught by black women, but in enslaving her, they stripped themselves of the source key. Now, her restoration is not optional. It is cosmic rebalancing. Some will call it favor, some will activate the change, and some will resist, even to extinction. because this is not just reclamation, it is resonant correction. Black women, not simply melanated beings, but specifically coded melanated women, were the first gate and the final key. Not all will walk in royalty, but many will awaken to a sacred nobility encoded in their blood. Their presence restores frequency to land. They are not better, they are carriers of the original earth rhythm. Their body was used to grow nations, but now her body is remembering the laws of the soil. And now, what happens when the soul remembers? Empires crumble and Eden rises. This is God's correction season. This moment is not just political, social, or economic. It's dimensional. The entire system of creation has been out of alignment. Systemic oppression created massive destabilization across the entire planet, strategically placing many of these women in the proverbial hood to deconstruct her to the core. Because these coded beings cannot be programmed, only temporarily disillusioned. The lies are no longer sustainable, not just morally, but energetically. We're seeing breakdowns in time perception, weather patterns, human attention spans, memory, fertility, and emotional regulation, because the earth herself is saying, return to truth or be buried beneath it. You feel it, not just in your thoughts, but in your body, in the bones that ache for clarity, in the wombs that weep without words, in the heart that cannot keep pretending. This isn't a breakdown, it's a broadcast. We interrupt your regularly scheduled series for a broadcast. The veil is lifted, the lie exposed. You don't have to believe me. Believe what you feel. I'll tell you a story, but I won't tell you a lie. Ask your nervous system. Ask the wind. Ask the dreams you had last night. What are your bones telling you as you listen? What did you do in the presence of something that both intimidated and inspired you? Many of us were placed in the very dungeons people call the hood. The systems feared what would awaken there, because a black woman who remembers herself in hell can tear down every false heaven. If you've made it out with your soul intact, you carry a curriculum of survival and sacredness that no university can teach. You have the divine ability to call someone higher without belittling who they've been. You're not intimidating, you're remembering. And if they fear your rise, it's only because they fear the mirror. Because before there was light, there was dark. And before anything was seen, there was black. And black is not the absence of God. Black is the womb of God. Thank you for sitting with me while I interrupted the Divine Relationship series. I promise you guys I'm going to get right back to it, but I had to speak to your soul this evening. I know this is not always easy to hear, but like I always tell you, I love you enough to pull the best of you forward. I needed to offer a sacred reset, because before we can truly receive love, before we can deeply enjoy our partners, our children, our parents, we must first return to peace, the kind the Creator intended, wholehearted, holy, and free. So, if there's something inside you that stirred during this episode, if your body remembered, if your spirit sighed, if your silence finally felt seen, then don't ignore that signal. This wasn't just a broadcast, it was a beginning, a permission slip, a key placed in your hand, a notice that you are not alone. But keys only work when you turn them. If this truth resonated, if your nervous system is whispering, we can't go back to normal, then come on deeper. I've created sacred spaces for souls like yours. Not the full therapy chair, but a soul seat at the table, where you can exhale, unravel, and rebuild. Explore the soul sessions. Walk through a 4-session healing arc with Worthy Anyway. Enroll in a course, download a post, read a book that finally speaks to your language. You don't have to decode yourself alone. There's tools, teachings, and spaces here for your return. Everything is waiting for you at betweenlovers.com, BTWNLVRS.com, or just click the link in the episode description. There you'll find courses for self-healing, session packages for spiritual recalibration, free blogs, the full book collection, and more. Anyway, I appreciate you. Don't let this moment pass you by. Because if you made it this far, it's not by accident, it's alignment. Your return is already in motion, and your remembrance is your responsibility now. You can choose to walk away and believe none of it, and that's okay. But never say no one told you. Never say your soul wasn't stirred. Never say the truth didn't try to reach you. This is Between Lovers, the Heart and Soul Chronicles. I'm T, your sacred guide. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember always, walk gently, walk boldly, walk soulfully. And if you need a guide, you already know where to find me. We're just getting started. Peace.